Yo, what is up, everyone? My name is Chris, and we're MSLs here, and today we're bringing you part 5 of the My Hero Academia What If on What If All for One and All Might swap places. So, before we get into this What If, leave a like, subscribe, and share it to your friends, and so you can share all these others, what ifs to other people. If any ideas for any other what ifs in different animes, leave it down in the comments down below, and we will make sure to reply to your comments. So, yeah, let's get on to this part 5. Midoriya is trapped by both Muscular and Shigaraki. He is worried that he will not make it in time. Midoriya is prepared to fight since he always keeps his power stocked up, so he decides to attack Shigaraki first, since it seems like he's the easier target. So he uses some of the counter impact to get to Shigaraki, and the speed is shocking. And Midoriya punches Shigaraki far away off the cliff, and Muscular goes to get Shigaraki. Midoriya grabs Koda and rushes him to the building, and he tells Koda that he is leaving to help All For One, and Midoriya ends up leaving away from the summer camp to get to All For One quickly as possible, and he just hopes that his classmates can handle the villains. The way Deku gets to All For One is that he uses all of his counter impact to make big leaps and then take breaks to store up his power again. He shoots a text to All For One hoping that he will see it, and uses his teleport quirk to pick him up, but as soon as he looks at the news, he sees All For One looking at his phone as he just crushes it, and then All Might arrives. Midoriya is just in pure shock of All For One doing this to him, not going with the plan and just to face All Might by himself. Midoriya then punches into the ground, sobbing and screaming as he repeatedly punches the ground. The dirt he punches starts to feel like concrete. He looks up. Midoriya somehow teleported to the city, and he thinks this is All For One's doing, but then he has no time to think about it, and he hurries to All For One's location. Back at the camp, most of the fights go the same, but no one is getting captured. Tokiyami still has his shadow overtake him, but Muscular tries to fight it on his own. Shigaraki is angry that Midoriya left, and he tells Kurogiri to teleport him to Midoriya's house, and Shigaraki breaks into Midoriya's house, and there is no one, and it's empty. This angers him even more, and he starts to get a bit worried. He starts scratching himself repeatedly until he ends up bleeding a bit, so he then decides to head to the battlefield to fight Midoriya on his own. Midoriya finally gets there and sees the fight going on, and All For One isn't looking so good. With his pure strength, even his quirk absorption, he could tank All Might's hit, but he is really going beyond his limits. He even throws some flash guard to blind All Might temporarily. This isn't even a real fight. It's just All For One playing on the defensive and to stay alive from All Might. Midoriya steps in, hitting All Might with all his force, and he sends All Might flying. He goes to All For One, asking him how he's doing, but then All For One yells in pain from his head damage, and this worries Midoriya, so he stocks up his quirk, so he is ready to fight All Might at full power. But then he looks at his left and sees Shigaraki with his eyes widen. Shigaraki, without a ward, charges at Midoriya, but then Midoriya uses his rope quirk to capture Shigaraki, and he is about to punch him, but All For One struggling to say this, but he says to Midoriya that he has a teleportation quirk. So Midoriya, without a second thought, opens a portal and kicks Shigaraki down the portal. All Might emerges from the rubber, furious about what Midoriya did. He screams at All For One, calling him a coward for bringing a boy to fight his battle, but Midoriya chirps in, saying that he would not let his mentor die alone. This phrase shocks the entire world, the number one hero having a successor, and everyone thinks that their ultimate savior from many, many years is near his end. Midoriya starts charging at All Might, fighting him with the best of his ability, and thanks to Aizawa for the extra training, Midoriya's fighting ability is putting up a good fight against All Might, until All For One joins and they both start wailing on All Might until Midoriya runs out of the stocked up power for counter impact, and he is hit away from the battle. He is impaled by a rhubarb stick that's in his shoulder, and he pulls it out, and then the healing quirk starts making him feel better, but also completely charges up the power stock so that he can continue his fight with All Might. Midoriya and All For One pulls combos against All Might, with All For One using Flash Guard to blind All Might and Midoriya attacking, and when Midoriya uses his Warp Quirk to capture All Might, and All For One would attack. All Might gets angry and 100% punches the ground that causes a huge damage. As the dust clears, it is shown that All For One has his mask broken and his arm crushed. All Might then steps on him, putting more pressure on All For One's body. Midoriya sees this and tries to help, but he is buried under rubble. He then teleports himself on top of the two, and he uses his rope quirk to throw All Might into all the rocks, and then goes on all the rubber and starts rapidly punching All Might using all of the stored up power, and he gives one final punch into All Might's face and slamming him into the ground, and then he rushes over to All For One, trying to get him out of the rubble to bring him to somewhere safe. As then Midoriya turns around, seeing the rubble that All Might was in being moved around. Midoriya then uses his rope quirk to tie All Might down. Midoriya punches the ground as hard as possible, and then with all the stored up power, knocks out All Might across the head, knocking him out. He goes back to All For One and gets him out of the rubble. He lets All For One rest on him, but then Midoriya finally notices that there's something that impaled All For One's stomach, and Midoriya tries to scream out for help, but All For One stops him, saying that this is how things needs to go. He says to Midoriya, now it's up to him, as he puts up his hand on Midoriya's shoulder, giving Midoriya the rest of his quirks. Then, with the very little energy he has left, he grabs Midoriya's arm and lifts it up, screaming to the crowd, and so that everyone can hear him. He states that Izuku Midoriya is his successor and that he will be a better hero than himself, and that he believes that he can surpass even himself. As the last word goes out of his mouth, he falls down, lifeless. Midoriya tries to give the healing quirk to All For One, but he couldn't, as he just says All For One's name, trying to make him wake up as he is sobbing by his side. Back at the summer camp, after backup heroes arrives, the League of Villains retreated, and Class 1A and Aizawa had enough time to see the news just before All For One gave his speech telling the world of his successor and of him passing away. Everyone wonders why Midoriya was there. When Kodo said that he was captured and forced to be brought to the fight to see All For One die in person, everyone felt bad for their classmate, especially Uraraka, seeing Deku all broken like that. Bakugo isn't shocked that all this time Midoriya was training under All For One and the hero he looked up to as well. Enku, seeing the news, heartbroken in the secret hideouts that was once one for alls. News reporter tries to speak to Midoriya, but he just walks past them, saddened at the fact that he just leaves without saying a single word. He's on top of a rooftop, thinking to himself on what he's going to do now. He knows that he has to return to school, but his mother, she will never be safe out in the public. So he tries to use a teleportation quirk. He imagined the hideout, and he then teleports there, where he is greeted by his mother, giving him a hug. She tells him that she is sorry for what he had to go through for something like that. A couple days has passed. A funeral had happened for All For One. Midoriya does show up in secret, though. He returns to school, and everyone is looking at him, and all he could do is look downwards, and he gets to class, and everyone quiets down as Midoriya gets into his seat, and he sits down without saying anything. School does go on as normal. Then at the end of the day, Aizawa pulls Midoriya aside, and he has to talk with him. He asks him why he never told Midoriya about any of this, and Midoriya said that he couldn't. Aizawa asks if he could tell him everything about this, and Midoriya is hesitant about telling him, but then he ends up giving in and tells Aizawa the whole story. And then Aizawa said that he will help Midoriya to achieve what All For One wanted, but they would need to do one small thing. Aizawa starts a press conference, and this is where Midoriya talks about All For One, and he announces that he states that he will find the villains that assisted in the death of All For One, and he will bring them to justice. And he says to the world that he will honor All For One and take on his mantle of symbol of peace. So guys, that's where we're going to end off this part of what if All Might and All For One swap places. If you have any ideas for any My Hero Academia what ifs or any other what ifs, leave it down in the comments down below. If you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Tell us what you think is going to go on in the next part. And yeah, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.